I know what you're gonna ask me, and you're gonna ask me, hey, what's going on? Have you given up on doing this whole thing with the universe and all of that stuff and building our characters? No, I haven't. It's just been a lot of things going on recently, which is my life and everything else, and the other channel. So a lot of things going on. But this is now the villain of Death Moth, right? So like I was telling you guys before, this is basically like a lot of these characters are gonna be derivatives of characters that I would like to write for or would have loved to have wrote and drawn for as professional, but I didn't get to. So like Death Moth is obviously a play of Batman. They stole the idea from me, the whole absolute Batman. No, they didn't. But like that's what was my idea. And I just didn't do it fast enough, and also they got to it first. Even if it would have made a difference. Whatever. But now his antithesis is his main villain, the guy, the antagonist. Antithesis. Why I say that? His villain of his story is a play on many villains of Batman, including the Joker, Two-Face, Clayface, all of those guys. And I didn't like the way like it came out, like on fresco, the roll, the B-roll. So I'm just gonna do it like showing you on the iPad. But first, if you're new here, please guys, just like, subscribe, share. This all helps me out. But yeah. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna actually show you on the iPad like what he looks like and explain to you his name and all of that stuff. And it's not gonna be a long video, but again, the purpose of these videos are to kind of get these characters out there into the zeitgeist, right? And then later on, like I did before with Death Mob, which I actually initially just drew him first instead of on the iPad digitally. Their costumes will change, things will change, but I just want to get the basic core idea of who they are out there, and what they might look like like in the end. But they shouldn't deviate too much from what they are. But I want to get the concepts out there, right? So that way we can start building this out, and as time goes on, we can change costumes, colors, whatever it needs to happen. So real quick here, I am going to show you what this guy looks like here. Hold on, I gotta switch this around. I'm using a new camera, and I'm gonna hold on one second. Okay, so this is CapCut, and the way it was going on CapCut, it was just not good. It was all pixelated, whatever. So this is my iPad now. You would say, oh, that's Two-Face or whatever. Well, yes and no, right? I kind of wanted him. So this is the hero's, the villain's name is Hoax, right? Like, get it, Joker, Hoax, right? Anyway, but the main part is that, and this came about, it's funny how characters write themselves later as you go along. So I didn't know what kind of his background was and all of that other stuff. And then as I'm going along, I realized, well, it'd be funny if like, like Death Moth is like the opposite. He doesn't have the riches. He doesn't have all the gadgetry, super gadgetry, available to him like Bruce Wayne does. But this guy does. He's the villain, and he has like, he's comes from money. He's a nepo kid, but his childhood, because he was so like privileged, came with a lot of bullying, right? He's a product of bullying, and this whole situation came from a hoax, right? So it was basically that, as a child, these older kids were like, picking on him and making him, feel terrible about himself, and they basically played a hoax on him and ended up, burning half his body, and that's why he looks that way. And as he got older, he kind of like, it just took over him, took over his persona. The bullying kept going, got worse, obviously. And then, he has like, voices in his head and things, he not that he changed his personality, but he has like a second voice in his head, and that is driving him, and that drove him to insanity. So basically, that's the play on Two-Face, right, a little bit. But and he just wants to make the world burn, right? He's almost like an anti-hero in a sense too, where he's like Magneto in a sense. He wants to kill and torture those who prey on the innocent, and that stuff. And Death Moth is kind of like on the other side of things, where like Batman, like, no, you can't do those things. But this is probably going to be like ultra violent. But as you go here, so let me go there. Let me just move this over here. So, and this came about accidentally. So basically, Death Moth is like a dark colored superhero, and you haven't seen that yet because I haven't done that yet. But here I wanted Hoax to kind of be like the yin and the yang, right? And it just so happens that I was just coloring, and I said, "Oh, it'd be nice if you have a light colored suit." Now, this is just doing the symmetry tool, and so, I'll fix the focus on here, and there we go. So, using the symmetry tool, so kinda, like, just get this all, I know that tie is very short, don't get me on that, but, I wanted a simple, clean look, and maybe I'll make this a little dirtier, but he's the playboy right now, like, he's the in the limelight, he's known, throughout, socialized circles and stuff like that, but they also, he has like his double life where he goes out there himself and he does these things to these to corporate people and they don't know it's him. I don't know how that's gonna play out yet, but basically this is who he is, and Death Moth is basically trying to stop him from doing these things, and they have this kind of like clash of ethics. And so but he also has adopted now, like, instead of Batman being the trained, like basically assassin, like, as it were, he's gone through this as a child because he wanted to be not bullied anymore. He wanted to be stronger than his aggressors, right? So now he has adopted, all these fighting techniques and skill sets and stuff like that. So he's now, in essence, been trained by the best. And that the worst thing is that you get a villain that's trained that way, who doesn't care about, life, and he has the money. So for him, it's not about money. It's about just torturing those who torture, people who they perceive to be less than. Um, and that's his whole situation. Like I said, these are all flats, obviously color schemes that eventually will change with time as I, no, kind of like refine the whole scheme of things, right? So there you have it. That's Hoax, and this is the counterpart to Death Moth, and they're in that universe, and I will, I'm kind of excited to like flesh these guys out, and see where they go, and what the stories might be, and do some actual drawings of these guys. Like I said, this will change. It's funny because my art style is much different digitally than it is on paper. So like I don't draw like this particularly in on paper, right? I draw much different. It's weird. But this helps me just get things out quick, rather than being on paper and being sketchy and everything. But yeah, well, there you have it. That's Hoax, the villain. And I can't wait to kind of like just flesh these guys out, and do some things with them. Maybe make stickers and other things. So the journey is there. Hopefully, you can keep joining me along. I'll keep doing these things. I'll do some news videos also, as it were. I'm doing this type of like handheld type video right now because I'm not sure what works best for this channel. If it's like this or is it like the talking head, and I'll try, you know, those as time goes on. But right now, I'm just trying something new here with this new camera setup that I have going on. I'm recording in log. If that makes a difference to anybody out there. But yeah, so there you are. So that's most and villain Hoax. Yes, I know. So you just didn't remember. It's a derivatives of characters that I would love to have drawn for. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I will touch back to Sol and Luna, and in their part of the universe pretty soon. Haven't forgot about them. What I'll probably do next is do traditional drawings of all of these and sort of like give them that authentic look, like the authentic, comic book look. But let me know in the comments below what do you think so far, and I'll see you in the next video, and I'm out. Peace.